on YouTube today, or tonight, I guess. It is currently 7:40 in the PM. So today I'm just gonna do like a quick little video, or not really video. It's kind of just like a follow along on how I sort of go about mixing my songs and stuff like that. So for today, I'm probably just gonna go over the chord and the bass. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a little bit tired. Um, but yeah, this is kind of what I've been starting on, and then I sort of just decided to be like, hey, this is a good time to do a tutorial. So let's jump into what I have right here. It's gonna sound very bad, but it's just to give you an idea of what you'll be working or what we'll be working with here today. So all right, so those are the chords. Chords in here, not really going to talk much about the chords. So with our first set of chords, it's pianos. So this is supposed to be here too. Whoops. So for me, really simple. All I do is I take this down maybe about 11, depending on what I'm feeling. But most of the time, it's going to be around like between 11 and like maybe like 9 or so, like that. So I'll put it back at like 11. So I also just add some OTT. I usually just make it at 50% because that's like it sounds pretty bright, but not too bright to where it's going to overtake the leads. And then just let's go deeper into here. So with EQing piano chords in this sense, or really for either piano or synth chords, I usually let's see if I can sort of redo this. So I usually use the parametric EQ2, and then I usually go from here. So this is, I think, like the 2-band. I'm not too technical in terms. You just got to know what sounds good. But what I know is that chords, especially in the drop of progressive house songs, the bass needs to be almost out in a way. So what I usually do is that I go from here and go to type, and then high pass, and then do it again, go to order, and then do gentle 8. So it creates sort of like this nice slope for the frequencies, for all the frequencies over here to be playing, but none of the bass frequencies that are over here. Even though up here it does say bass, that means like from here, maybe from like here until about here, there's like very small bass frequencies that are actually playing, but it's not as sorry, I just ate. It's not as like loud in your face if I was to have it over here. So I'll show you the difference real quick. So it's about here, so that's at like 117 hertz. Like as you can see, like the bass frequencies are still hopping in a little bit, but not as much if I was to do this. So yeah, that's for those. Those are for the piano chords. Really, how I imagine it is that if you're taking like the key components of a progressive house song, which is like the sub bass, the mid bass, the chorus, and the leads, I would say between maybe here, this point, if you can see my cursor up here and this point over here is just going to be like sub bass and kick, right? And then from maybe where I had it to maybe about right here would be mid bass, and then from here on to maybe like about right here is chords. So chords are gonna be like very chords are always thick, and I like to make my chords nice and thick in my tracks, like to fill up nicely. And then the rest on is just like your leads and maybe arpeggiators. Most arps are arpeggiators. They can be between like the high, like start of here to here. They can also most of them are gonna probably fall in the mid range, but you definitely want them to be you definitely want them to be heard but not clashed with your leads, because then the listener is not going to know what melody is actually playing at a time or playing at that time. So yeah. So the next is the synths. So I just do a little bit of EQing here. So let's see if I can remember. So yeah, like as the same as the piano chords, you want to EQ it towards the bass frequencies aren't there, and that they are being heard. I think with this one, they're not really there that much, but let's just hear it and see. Yeah, they're there. They're there a little bit. I also have these like little hills here too, or frequency cuts that I have. Normally with parametric EQ to an FL Studio, um, I don't know. I have no idea how to like silence or solo out for certain frequencies that I want to try to hear that I could cut out that sound really bad for the listeners. That would sound really bad for the listener's ear. So for example, I'm going to use Pro Q2 by the almighty Fab Filter. So with them, this is probably like the most notorious equalizer thing you could possibly have as a music producer. I feel like anyone of any genre has this. But so let me mute this one for parametric EQ2, and then we're going to hear it and EQ it from, from Pro Q2. So first we're going to do is we're going to take out the bass frequencies. And now we're gonna start adding in our frequency cuts. So what sounds bad to us. Right, so I probably should explain. So how to do that in Pro Q2 or Pro Q3, you want to like double click, make sure this point is here, you want to drag it up, and then you want to scroll down on your I have no idea what this is called, but it's this middle part here, the scroller thingy. And you want to make it nice and tight like this, and then you just want to like go across this line and hear what sounds really bad. And like I said, the really cool thing about Pro Q3 is that you could actually silence that frequency or hold this down and move it left and right, to whereas you could hear, you could really solely hear which frequencies are bad. So see, like that's pretty bad. So oh my god, ooh, it's too much. Maybe about right about there. I kind of hear that there's one more. Yeah. That's pretty bad too. Let's take that out. Maybe like one more. All right. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear the difference between it being EQ'd and not EQ'd. but I'll play them for you. So this is EQ'd. And then not EQ'd. It's kind of subtle, but it definitely makes it'll definitely make a difference as you make more and grow more with your track. So the next is another synth. I didn't really want to. This one seems kind of full to me, so I didn't really want to EQ it that much, except for to take out the low end. And so, so from there, I take all three of these, and then I run them to another channel, or what they call a bus channel. I wish I had an animation that said a bus channel, but yeah. So I run them here, so that way they're all being mixed out of one, or like can be mixed out of another or out of one channel. So like here. So let me play all of them together. Nope, get out of here, bass. Like they're all being controlled from this one channel. And then I have another OTT, which is just at 20, just to give it a little more brightness. And then I did some more EQing here. If you can notice, there are some dips here and there. Also, we removed any unnecessary low frequencies. And then over here, I also took out like the very like end of where a lot of the high end would be for your leads. And you kind of want to knock that out, because then it will sound sort of hissy, and the frequencies will like, they'll just like fuck with each other basically between the leads and your chords. So you want to make sure you knock those out, because a lot of the chords are playing between like here, not the chords, the leads are playing between here and like here, and maybe even beyond, if it's even, you know, remotely possible in the audio world. But yeah, that's basically how I EQ my chords. So now we're gonna go on to mid-bass. Mid-basses are actually very, very simple. What I do is that, so for the first preset I have is this one. So it's good. What I do is that with mid basses, you kind of want to knock them. It can kind of vary from whatever sound that you're using. So for in this case, originally the sound had some high end to it. But if you go a little bit deeper, we can see that like here, it's a little bit past where the chords usually would be knocked out, or the bass in the chords would be knocked out at. I feel like it should be moved out maybe a little bit more. But usually that's fine. I also run all my mid basses to a bus, so I can do some more EQing and stuff like that. And so usually with this, I just knock out a good portion of the high end, just so nothing's playing in that realm. Right, and then I'm gonna go to another one. Kind of already know what sounds I like and what sounds I want. So that might be a little loud in your head, I'm sorry. So we're gonna put that on the same. I normally would put some on the same one just to save some mixer space. And so basically like this. Right? So those two presets are like really gritty, you know, like that sort of helps if we can take a closer look. Like it definitely has some like high mid frequencies in there, but I just knocked them out because they'll kind of get in the way, I think. Of course, it's always, you know, to each their own when it comes to making music. But yeah, like they're basically filling up like a lot of the midsection of your track. That's why you call it mid bass. And then next, what I usually do is that I also add a like an actual like acoustic sounding bass guitar. I don't know why it helps from what I've discovered. Yeah, so let's. You also another really important thing is making sure that the pattern of whichever one you're like for let's just say example this acoustic one, it needs to actually like make sense because right now it's at like between octave C4 and C5, so it's like right here. So if I put this in the mixer, lower it down. Like it sounds pretty coherent with or cohesive with the other presets, opposed to if I was to put it up higher. I don't know, to me that just doesn't sound right, like in my head. Like I think having an octave higher kind of puts it out of place, or even an octave lower. Because an octave lower is essentially where your sub bass is going to be. So, so right where all the other ones are at was pretty good. As you can see, like we kind of with this particular sound, this acoustic bass or whatever, it particularly doesn't have a lot of actual mid frequencies in it. It does have a lot of sub bass, which we will need to take out, of course. So with Nexus, I think I explained this in another video, but how do you get sounds to actually pitch like that instead of like interrupting each other. So what you do is that if you have Nexus 3, you go to modulation, the modulation tab up here, and then mode it trigger or TRG, and then the speed is 1/4. So keep that in mind if the idea ever comes to you. So yeah, with this EQing, I normally don't do much since it obviously doesn't have much in the midsection itself. But I normally wouldn't like extend it up like this to give it more frequency. That's kind of not like I've sort of discovered that doesn't really work. So yeah, like I kind of just keep that as it is. But then I also add in this one other mid bass as well, which I think is Music Chords. Music Chords is definitely a great. They have a great library. I'm pretty sure like they're for progressive house people. They probably heard of Music Chord or starting out. I don't know. Anyway, this bass is called Rage. So the next thing, as you can see, like it's for like if you wanted to like have it pitch down, you got to do for silent 1 in this VST. It's over here, so I usually put it to normal. So just switching this to N, and then putting it to about, if you can see in the top left corner, it's about 350 milliseconds, and then you just copy that pattern here. And then normally, since this particular preset, since there's nothing really covering like the high ends of the mid bass, I usually would take something like this and throw it up an octave, then put it to the mixer. Right, so then we run these to another. So how I run all of my tracks to a bus is that I highlight them all by holding control Control and then highlighting what you want. Or actually, no, Control Shift highlighting all with your mouse. And then you go here, you right click, and then route to this track only. And then what I do is I hit the right click. Fuck, I forgot already. The right clicky mouse thingy, or right click. And you go down to create group, and then I just label this as drop Midbass. I'm going to keep it the same color as this one, just for organization. So now, let's see what they both sound like together. With the chords, of course. So one thing that is kind of crucial is that your basses need to be, or mid basses kind of need to be in mono. So what I do is I usually put this around 50, and then I put these other ones about between 19% and 25, just moving them back out of the way a little bit. And then what I also do is that I use distortion on my mid basses. So I'll use like Camel Crusher, and then I go to British Clean. It's kind of the only one that distorts really nicely, or the only preset that distorts really nicely, and it doesn't have any sort of like crushingness to it. It just makes it like nice and louder and more thick. But what I'm about to tell you is a secret. It's not a secret. I actually just compress my mid basses, which is very important. So what I do is I lower the threshold to maybe about right there, -26 dB, and then the ratios all the way here. Usually I'll just do this as I go along. So like I'll just watch the track come in, and then I'll see how much I've compressed. So I reset these. Okay, so yeah, that was just me simply compressing the mid bass. And then another thing that I do is that I take a stereo shaper, and then I just move it down like slightly. So hopefully you can hear the difference. All right, so that was the mid basses. Lastly will be our sub bass. So I have a lot of different like sample packs and FLP projects from glorious producers all over the internet. And so what I do is that if you like something, you could always just save it. So if you're going through like a project that you bought or like a free download or whatever, what you can do is you can go here. If you like a sub bass, for example, from one track, you could go up to here, the down arrow, you could go to save preset as, and then you go to your desktop, and then blah 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 blah. And you know how you guys know how to save and all that stuff. So yeah, this is, so now let's mix the sub bass. So the sub bass normally just has the same pattern as your mid basses. So let me just add these in. So like, remember what I said earlier, how your sub bass should sound, or it should sound like the lowest point of the track. It shouldn't sound too high. It shouldn't sound too low. Just right in the middle. So with EQing sub basses, first I just compress because your sub basses really do need to be compressed, in my opinion, when making progressive house tracks. I kind of learned that the hard way, but let's see. So if you can see into here with compressing, this purple batch here, or this purple layer, is what's actually being compressed. So as you can see, it's like really a nice steady line no matter what note it is, and that's kind of what you want. You can tell up here in the blue, that's originally what the sound was without any compression. As you can see, it's kind of like peaking and trailing off. But here, you can see that it's just a straight line all the way through, which is what you want. So very important. Next is putting it all the way to mono. You never really want your sub bass in stereo because that's stupid. So always have it in mono. And so next is that I'll usually take R bass or Renaissance bass by waves, and I usually put 2.0. Look what happened. Right there, and then there you go. Here we have that. Then so another very important thing is EQing your sub bass too, because you only want it to be in the sub bass frequency. So, which is right there, opposed to having it like this. You can clearly see all the frequencies that are subtly there, that aren't really there, but they're there because they're obviously just trailing off as they're playing. So it's very important that you do that. And so the next, I usually just put a stereo shaper about the same amount as mid bass, and then that's really it. I really just compare between the drop sub bass and mid bass. But let's see. All right, and there you have it. So there we have a mixing. I think this is my first mixing tutorial. I know that some of you guys sort of asked for the UR special one, but fun fact, my UR special FLP doesn't really open anymore, which sucks. I know, but so now on, I'll probably just give an example of starting from scratch on how to like mix your stuff. So the next video will definitely have the leads, the arps, and probably the kicks, and maybe some percussion if I get that far. But until next time, thank you so much. Please feel free to leave comments, any questions about mixing that you just watched, and I'll be more than happy to get back to them and to answer your questions. So until then, stay safe and stay healthy.